Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. My name is Greg McMillan, and it is, as we record this, Monday, January 27th. And wow, it's hard to believe that we're already almost a whole month into the new year already. Wow. Well, anyway, let's bring in these two guys here. We got Mr. Dave Podner. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Greg. How's it going?
Not bad. We were just talking, of course, about the weather like we always do, and it's
of course
the blizzard out here again. Can't get away from it. But
that's just
anyway,
crazy. That's just crazy.
It is, and that's Canada, right? But we'll bring in Mr. Dwight Broman. Hello, Dwight. How you doing?
Hey, Greg. Hey, Dave. It rained here, so everybody's freaking out.
I mean, good rain for the fires, but now mudslides, right?
Mudslides, but any kind of rain with our population is rough driving. So
True.
It's good. It's been nice. We need it. I get a lot of ash and stuff on my patios, and you just can't clean it off, and the rain does help.
Yeah, that's good.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, you too. So tonight, we kind of come up with this idea of broadening our horizons. And when I said, it's a new year, it kind of goes along with maybe trying some new things in our photography. So we've got a few thoughts about all this. And Dave, did you see our shared note?
I did, yeah. I did,
put some things in? Okay. I just put these in there, just kind of maybe get the ball rolling. And one of them is, I'm going to kind of mix them up here a little bit. Refined technical skills, so it's the bottom one on the list there. And Dave, you've mentioned this before, and I don't know how much people have actually tried it or even how much you've actually tried it, but you do live photos almost exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So something new to try with live photos is, you can make a short video clip with those things. You could take a series of live photos, put them all into CapCut or whatever app and make a short video clip, correct?
Yeah, and actually you can create an individual photo into a video in the Photos app. So you can do that. And then what I do a lot of times is I'll do the individual photos, create them into videos, and then put it into like Apple Clips or CapCut, those videos, to kind of put them together that way. Because sometimes the conversion of live photos by other apps doesn't work as well. The one by Google, I'm actually going to look it up here so I get
Google
the name.
Motion or something?
Motion Stills.
Motion
Stills. That works pretty good. You do not need a Google account. You don't have to sign in. You do have to give access to your photos on device, but everything's on device, which is so unusual for Google. But that does a pretty good job with keeping the subject in the middle and cutting it so you can actually get together, like you said. If you take 4 or 5 photos, you can string them together and get a little video where, if you don't want to necessarily take a video, but you want to get photos out at the end, but you can still get that video together with the sound.
Yeah.
So that makes it a nice little difference there too.
Yeah. And I keep saying I'm going to try some of the new things and a lot over the years, a lot of the things that you've suggested. And this is one of them, but I have to remember to start taking a few live photos. But with 2 little dogs running around the house, it shouldn't be too hard.
Right. And honestly, it's also good for event photos because you can you may just like take a still image and then convert a live photo into a video. And that way you can do like a still image to get the shot and show the motion of what's going on. Like at a sporting event. I'm thinking like even track and field. Where you're trying to get that right shot that's the right time, but you can also get motion. You can actually get video showing the motion that's going on.
Yeah.
Now, live photos also mean not raw. of any kind.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is the trade-off there.
So you could actually, you could go on a run and you have your phone with you and you could take a live photo every so often.
Oh, I do.
Put them all together and then you can just show what it looks like going through that run
Almost
in
like
a very
time
short
lapse.
period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, the stabilization of the iPhone for photos is good enough that the photos, like I showed two episodes ago, I believe, that were like of the lake with the boathouse in the distance.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times when I'm taking photos on runs, I'm not stopping to take the photo. I'm taking my phone out. I'm using the side button here, the camera button, to bring up the camera. And as I'm running along, so I'm not exactly stable because I'm jogging up and down. And I'm just kind of getting a shot that's close enough. And I'm zooming out enough where I can crop if I need to. And I'm just taking a shot while I'm running. And it's amazing how you can take a shot from a non-stable moving platform and how good it can turn out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so I mean, that's something that I want to try with, excuse me. I think the best subject matter for me would be, we got 2 little dogs running around the house, and Dwight, you have cats. Dave, you have dogs and cats, and I'm sure we can, I'm sure there's bound to be some pretty decent content there to be done. But Dwight, you've, when you got into iPhone photography, you took a little different approach than a lot of people, and that is through your editing. You go full on hardcore desktop editing.
Yeah. Yeah. My path is kind of interesting. It was COVID time, and I've always really liked photography, but I've never really explored it. So, we were all pretty much locked up, and I just decided one day to start taking a few pictures, and it was really kind of neat. So I got into the iPhone photography school. And then you're in the chat groups and stuff like that, and everybody's saying, well, you have to do this editing module. You have to, because, all your iPhone photos won't represent the scene as it was when you took it. That's arguably true or not, at this point. But I ended up taking the editing module, and it was just unbelievable. Some of the things you can do with your photos. Everything back then was at a global edit for me. I overcooked everything with saturation. I thought it was super cool. But then I realized, as time went on, that you do it, you refine it, you do it, gradually, and really try working on getting the scene back to how you remembered it. And then from there, that was in Snapseed. So I got pretty good at Snapseed. And then, I've been watching all the YouTube videos I can. I started looking at, different luminosity masks and color masks. And I just wanted to, keep challenging myself on that, from that front. And I'm constantly challenging myself. I'm never satisfied. So about a year and a half ago, I really took the deep dive into Photoshop. And I'm always really, I want to know what the next thing is, or how to refine my skills more on the editing process, and even on the photography. I learned shooting auto on an iPhone. Now I'm learning to shoot manual. I'm not a manual expert. I didn't know what ISO and shutter speed and all this other stuff, white balance, and I still struggle with it a little bit. So I'm trying to refine those skills as well. I've just learned put ISO all the way down at the bottom, as low as it'll go, and work on shutter speed till you're in the middle of the histogram, and hope for the best. That's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and I'm always kind of looking for my next move from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, and so you've been stepping outside of your box from the beginning, constantly, like steadily.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable being in one place. And when I see the possibilities out there, I want to learn them, and hopefully at some point I'll get to the point where maybe I can start creating something on my own that others can learn from as well.
Yeah. And actually, you've been schooling me a little bit on some of this stuff. I don't have Photoshop, but I do have Affinity Photo, and it doesn't have as much, as many features and things in it as Photoshop does. But some of the things you can do once you figure out how to do them, like some of the masking tricks and stuff like that, you can do a lot with it. And I gotta say, I'm really enjoying what I'm picking up from you with that, because I used to have Photoshop way back when, like I'm talking probably 10, 15 years ago. But even then I didn't dig into it like I'm digging into stuff now.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of fun with you the other day when we kind of started, we posed a challenge. I showed my regular workflow on one of your photos in Photoshop. And then, how can we do the same thing in Affinity Photo? And I think we got pretty close. The luminosity masking is a lot different than being able to, pick a specific luminosity range or tone value. You just have to kind of work the curve to, kind of bring everything together. I think we got pretty close.
Yeah.
A lot more steps than, my panels and stuff in Photoshop, but you can get there still.
Yeah, you got some nice goodies on your screen in Photoshop for sure. But Dave, you've when you started doing your edits with things like Picasso and things like that, would you say that was kind of stepping outside your box? At the beginning?
I would say in the beginning, yeah, because I was originally going for photorealistic, trying to get it because I can't paint. There are people out there Ruth is an amazing painter. She can paint great. I can't. Mainly because I've never studied. I didn't put forth the effort, especially when I was younger, hand-eye coordination, whatever reason. But, going from, well, here's a photo, here's an exact photorealistic, just like you're there, versus I can use these apps to make it look like a painting, including making it put in texture. Even starting it in Picasso and then throwing it into Lightroom or putting it into Photomator, to add a little extra texture, to give it a little roughness that makes it look like it. So it's a little different than what I did in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's and that there is another box that I need to step out of and play around with. Like, and Dwight, your digital artwork is kind of like the same thing. Some of the things that you create, like some of the things that both of you guys create with this stuff is crazy good, and I don't know how to do it, but I kind of want to learn.
Yeah, I think my approach is a little bit different than Dave's, and I usually lay everything out in a app called Superimpose X. It's almost like a iOS version of Photoshop where you have layers and you can kind of put all the elements of what you want in there. And then I'll bring it into another program where like iColorama or something like that, and do, different art textures and, coherence and, effects, then I'll save that piece off, and then I'll create something else in the same program. And then I'll bring that other piece back, make it a black mask, and then just paint it into the areas that I want it. And then I might bring it over into Procreate and get the actual brush strokes. So, at some point I'd like to, maybe do a recording and maybe we can post it up here, just kind of like my process, and maybe Dave can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you get that many steps involved.
Yeah.
And different programs, because it's hard. I understand, like, if I'm trying to follow along. And this kind of makes me think back to when I was in college, where I could be in a course, the professor could be up on the board. Now, I'm showing my age, up on the chalkboard, starting to and this is a physics course, derive an equation, because we had to derive the equations before we could use them. And it would go across 4 chalkboards, just starting from the very basic going down to with assumptions of what you were going to use for the calculation. And I could understand that step, that step, that step. I understand that step, but it was always hard for me to understand, why did you do that step? I understand you did it. I understand how that step works, but why did you go from A to B to C to D to E? You know, when you looked at that, did you think about that ahead of time? Was there a thought process? And that's, you know, same thing for, you know, working on the photos. Like Dwight said, using 4 different programs. A lot of times people say, okay, I see the program, but, and this is something when we do the explanations, you know, on the video, saying, here's what I do it, and here's why I do it, and here's why you would want to use it and maybe not use it. So not just a matter of here's a program I use, but here's why I use the program.
Yeah.
And here's why you would not want to use the program.
Yeah, many times when I'm doing my artwork, I'm playing with a bunch of things. I'm doing different things. I'm doing different blends. I'm doing different masking. And I'll tell you that 95% of the stuff that I complete is a happy accident. Nothing that I planned. I may have planned out the elements, but the finished product is a happy accident most of the time. And that's the fun aspect of it for me.
Yeah, that's cool. So with photography, we're going to jump to a different part here now. But I think what we just talked about kind of works into this next thing. Like, photography is or can be all about telling stories, storytelling. And this is something else that I need to do a little more of, rather than just, you know, take a picture and think that I've got a nice composition and I'm doing everything technically right. I need to learn how to embrace storytelling with my photography. Maybe start taking a series of images, you know, and putting them together. Like, that's what I like about Glass. Glass has this feature called a series, and you can put things in there where, you know, it tells a story. And that's I'm so glad they did that, because I want to start doing that a little more. But you can also do some of the storytelling with the edit, and especially with like the digital artwork. You know, you can take multiple images even and put them together, and somehow it will tell a story, even if the output is just one image. But there's enough information there that, you know, you can create a mood and all, you know, all this stuff. What do you guys think? Have you guys thought about storytelling with your images? Like, Dave, I know with yours, like with your photos of running and things like that, especially at an event. I mean, they tell a story for sure. To me, they do anyway. Yeah,
especially like the one event that I just did, the Frigid 5 Miler, where there's a steep, long hill at the very end. And getting the photos of people, and I mean, it's them walking up the hill. At that point, where unless you're really, really good, you're walking up the hill. It's steep enough, and you can kind of see where people are just kind of, you know, the shoulder being slumped, and you know, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to finish this, but this isn't going to be like, this is not a triumphant run up the hill. There's a little bit of humbling going on, where you can get that, or getting someone as they, you know, go along, and the different strides that happen, or like I said, either other events that are happening. You can, and you don't necessarily even need people to tell a story. There are a couple of older churches, which are unfortunately in disrepair, but if you can get some black and white shots there and show what's happening, you can definitely tell a story just with what's going on and the architecture that's around. And a lot of that is, a lot of it's also on the editing. If you take the same photo and you do different edits to it, you can make it a happy, cheery, bright scene. You can make it a kind of an ominous scene with lots of shadows, how things are going on, or, make it an icy cold scene.
It's like those examples you gave us for the last show when we were talking about film simulations.
Yeah.
Each different film sim that you presented kind of had a different vibe to it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, Dave, you hit the nail on the head. When I'm doing my artwork, I may have a subject, and then in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, well, what's the mood of this subject? Well, he or she looks spooky, so all right, well, maybe I'll bring a house in. Maybe he or she's looking at this house, and then, or maybe it's a color image of a wall with a light, and it's really boring. So you can do stuff like bring the exposure all the way down, do a radial gradient underneath the light, and bring the exposure back up within that radius, and put somebody in that light. You can superimpose somebody in there and make it interesting. And I think, what Dave said, regarding how the editing piece goes. I mean, I think that's why color grading is so important to help get your mood across. I mean, you can have a relatively boring photo, but if you have the right color grade, somebody's going to say, hey, I really like the moody tones of that. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a subject in it.
Yeah. And just to be able to come up with these ideas while you're editing, I think is pretty cool. Is that something that comes natural? Is that something you learn? Where does that kind of thing come from?
Well, if I see a bare wall with a light, in the middle of the day shining down, I'm thinking, well, something should be illuminated under that. It could be a cat on the ground. I mean, I want to complete the picture. And I think that's just something I think that just comes natural to me, fortunately. I have a very vivid imagination, and I like to push my limits there as well.
Yeah. What about you, Dave? Where does it come from with you? Like, is it just something that happens, or do you have a process that you go through?
I would say it depends. Some photos, when I look at the scene, I definitely have a feel when I take the photo. Now, whether I feel that way, an hour or two or however long later when I actually edit it, that's different. But there are times I'm like, oh, this scene, it makes me feel like this. I have this feel to it, and, this setup, and this is what I have in mind. And other times I'll start with the photo and go, well, maybe I'll try it. When Dwight was talking about happy accidents, maybe I'll try this edit. Oh, that didn't turn out good. Oh, I'm trying, the contrast isn't right here. The color's not quite right in terms of what I want to get out of it. Maybe I'll try something else. So it's a matter of seeing a scene that kind of grabs me, that makes me that kind of, I don't want to say makes me take the photo, but gets the bug in me to take a photo at that time. And then also when later on during editing sometimes you're editing and it just kind of pops out when you're doing an edit. And like I said, you're playing with the edit, you're moving the sliders, you're trying this, you're doing this filter. And then all of a sudden you're trying different things like, oh, this just popped at me. This particular element just really got my attention in the way it's set up versus everything else. So this is definitely where I want to go with the editing and how the feel for the photo should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's something that I don't do enough of. And like I said, I don't. So Jack Hollingsworth wrote a little book. It's just a little paperback book like that. A few years ago. I forget how long ago it was now, probably 6-7 years ago. And I believe it's called The Joy of iPhoneography. And I bought that book and I read it. And he really goes into the emotional side of photography with this book. And I thought, after I finished reading it, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. You know what? I didn't. I just didn't do enough to explore the emotional side of photography where you could tell a story and things like that. So that's the main reason I wanted to include this section in this whole thing, is because that's my biggest downfall, I think, is, you know, I'll get a comment on a photo the odd time where someone will say, you know, they'll tell their story. They'll come up with their own story about it. And, you know, something clicks inside my brain, says, well, yeah. And I thought it was really cool that somebody else could tell a story with something that I took, and I had absolutely no inclination to tell a story with it at all. So that's a wonderful thing about photography, and that's going to segue into the next point I want to make is engaging with the community. I'm in too many places in all these communities. I have a bunch of Facebook groups that I'm in that I really enjoy, so I'm sticking with them. But there's some places where I'm going to trim down and kind of, you know, fizzle out of. Some of them were fly-by-night places. Like I used to really promote Day Flash when we were on Tiny Shutter. Mm-hmm. It's gone by the wayside. I thought it had a lot of potential. It was a well-designed app, the whole 9 yards. I was a little apprehensive of Glass at first, but it seems to be doing really good. It seems to be doing real strong. But so once I figure out where I'm going to be, which I pretty well got a good idea now, but you know what? We're going to do a show about, where we post our photos, like these communities things. We're going to do a show and talk about where's the best place to be. If you could pick just one, where would it be? So, I mean, it might just be a conversation between the three of us where we say we like this one because, well, and this is why, or whatever. You know, we'll work all that out. But that's coming up sometime here in the future.
I think that's true with a lot of social media these days, because you really have to curate with a lot of social media who you follow, who you don't follow. If you're muting certain words, which on most social media, you can mute certain words or topics. So if you're not interested in, let's say in 2 weeks or just shy of 2 weeks from when we're recording, you don't care about the Super Bowl. Okay. It will be flooding social media for the next, for the next 2 weeks. It will be flooding. So you could block Super Bowl. You could block Eagles. You could block Chiefs, Kansas City, Philadelphia, the individual players, because, and then your feed will not be in that. And you won't have to worry about it. You don't have to stress about it. You don't have to say, I'm looking for this content, but I'm digging through this giant pile of stuff I don't care about. There's people I follow who are tech people who live in Philadelphia. Well, guess what they're going to talk about for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, which I understand. If the Steelers were in the Super Bowl, not going to happen for a while, but if the Steelers were in the Super Bowl, I would be talking about it probably.
Yeah.
The fact it's two teams that I saw a map that said, this is who Kansas City's rooting for, this is who Philadelphia's rooting for, and the rest of the country is Team Meteor.
Yeah.
Team Meteor?
Yeah. As in the giant meteor to come from the sky.
Oh.
Basically, both teams are so hated. It's like, can we just have the game not happen? We really don't care. Yeah. We don't want anyone to win.
Well, I don't follow football that closely, right. but
I gave football as a neutral example, but there's other examples out there which are more charged that you're like, I don't want to hear about this. I go to this because it's a release. It's outside of my day-to-day life. It's outside of all my hassles I have to deal with. I do this for fun, and I don't want to read about this every time I go on here. Well, block, mute. If there's still people you want to follow, but you find them annoying for one reason or another, or they're family members who you may find annoying, you can mute them. on Facebook, or, like I said, or social media. Make it enjoyable for you to find that community, because the community you have is the one that you actually create for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. It kind of seems like a lot of work, but it could have its advantages,
No, it's definitely is work. It is definitely work.
Yeah.
The older I get, the less tolerant, and I've got a cat scratching at my door. I'm trying to remedy that. The older I get, the less tolerant I am of anything other than why I'm really there. And for me right now, it's photography. I have Facebook, I've got family members, and like Dave's saying, if I see something I don't like, I'll, just block it or scroll through. Instagram is where I've kind of started with my photography and art and my iPhone photography. So I've got 2 there, and that one's a little bit shaky because they're really moving towards reels and that type of thing. And a lot of the artwork and stuff that we were posting before was getting blocked by Instagram, which was interesting. So I use Vero. I'm using Glass as well, Greg. Today I just deactivated both of my my Thread accounts. I just didn't. I just don't feel like I needed another social platform like that. My challenge is, as far as community engagement, is I'm relatively new. Nobody knows who I am. And it's and that's fine with me. But I'm trying to engage with more people. To kind of take the ride with me, and that's a challenge. I'm new to the business, and I don't mind working my way up. That's fine. It doesn't bother me. But it is a challenge, I think, really kind of connecting with like minds on some of these platforms. So I'm in kind of a reduction mode. I think I'm using Vero. What I like about Glass is, I'm just seeing photos. I'm not seeing what color socks somebody, put on, that day.
Or what they had for lunch.
I'm not interested in that as much. So
with me, it's finding a way to post here, and here.
It's brutal.
And I mean, so Dave Mark, who is on the Dalrymple Report, he does copy and paste, because he posts things for their podcast to all the different places, right? And so I asked him on there, well, how do you do, like, I think it was on Threads or something, how do you post in all these different places? And he says copy paste. And that's okay as long as the post fits within the technical parameters of all of them together. Like, some allow this many characters, some allow that many characters. And but I mean, as far as stepping outside the box goes with this whole thing about social media, and that is, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to show the world what you're doing. You don't have to put your best work on if you don't want, but some people are afraid to put their stuff out there because of, they may receive negative comments. Well, you have to have thick skin, because not everybody's going to love your work. Not everybody's going to hate it, but I see it as a great learning opportunity, for, and when I post on social media, I am always open to critique, good or bad or otherwise, because that's how you learn. That's how you learn from what you've got. I put a picture out there one time. I had a bunch of people, critique it, and I couldn't take it again, obviously, but I was able to re-edit it based on their what they were saying about it. And by golly, it actually improved the photograph, to my eye anyway. So don't be afraid to step outside that box of where you're showing your work. Like some people want to just put it on Facebook to their family members or whatever. Well, don't be afraid to throw it on Instagram or Glass or Vero or any of these places where people can see it. And most of the time, people are pretty polite, with what they say about these things. And it's I just find it a great way to learn from other people, because some people will have an expertise in certain things. Like if I tried to make a digital art piece, I'm pretty sure you two guys would, if I asked you, you two guys would probably say, well, you could do this, or you could do this, you could do this. And it's something I wouldn't know. So, there's proof in the pudding right there that there's stuff to be learned from putting yourself out there.
Yeah. And if someone really gets nasty with you, block and mute.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, I mean, and I've seen two responses. I see, and it's not photography really, just responding to negative people. I know, one person who's a local wrestler, and she put out a photo of herself, and someone made a derogatory comment about her shape, the shape she's in. And she used it to say, as a response, but I've seen people who are on TikTok, and people come in and make bad comments, kind of threatening comments on their stuff. And they say, well, thank you for the engagement. That really helps me. And if you're big enough, I don't think any of us here are, but they're like, thank you, because you just made me money, because you increased my engagement, and you'll see more of my posts since you engaged with me.
Yeah.
Social media judo, like, oh, you're going to hate me? Please hate me, because you'll watch my stuff and I can make money off of you, and you'll even see more of me.
Yeah. I've got an example. I was showcasing the new 240 millimeter telephoto lens from Reflex, and I took a picture of a rock structure, and I posted it in the iPhoneography subreddit. And I was making a big deal about this lens, and I got eaten alive. The first thing I was accused of was, being a shrill for Reflex, and I was trying to promote their products and make a commission off my photo. That was about 10 comments, and then somebody pixel peeped my photo, and they saw a little bit of fringing around the rocks, so they started talking about how bad that lens was and it's not worth it. But in looking at it, that fringing was because I isolated the background and I changed the contrast, and it was, that fringing came in because of that. I was easily fixable, in Photoshop after. So, I learned something from it, but I also learned about, the way the community can approach you as well. Didn't bother me, but it was, I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah. See, that's just a classic example of you got to have thick skin. Mm-hmm. Right. And, every time I post a picture, I think to myself, and I don't do it for the likes. I mean, I've always maintained that if one person likes a picture that I post, job done for me. My reason for posting pictures is I want the world to, because I'm the only one otherwise who would see what I saw. Nobody else on the planet would see that unless somebody's standing right with me. But quite often I'm just out by myself, and nobody else will ever see what I saw unless I put it out there. So that's why I like to share what I see with the world, because it's what photography is all about, really.
Yeah, and you can and people that are really following you that are interested can also look at your feed, and this happened to me on the artwork side. It's like, Dwight, you've really progressed, over time. In the beginning, I look back at some of my original photos. I'm like, what am I doing here? But as time goes along, people were starting to notice that I was kind of developing into my own style there. So that was kind of motivating for me there. I don't care about the likes or any of that stuff. So I'm just interested in getting better.
So I think we'll put an end to this part of the discussion by each one of us will go through and give one piece of advice for people who are looking to, broaden their horizons. Since I just sprung it on you guys, I'll go first. And that is try a new subject matter or a new genre of photography. Some people are strictly landscape shooters. Some people are strictly portrait shooters or whatever. But I encourage people to try something different, now some kind of style or genre that they've never shot before. And I did that years ago with macro, and boy, oh boy, it got me hooked. I love macro photography now, and I just find that when there's nothing else to do, macro, there's always something to do with macro. So that would be my advice, is to, delve into something that you've never done before, whether it's a genre or a style or a subject matter. So that would be mine.
Either ask someone that you trust who's maybe not too close to you, but someone who will tell you the truth, that you trust their opinion, and say, okay, just take a look at some of the photos I've taken recently and tell me what you think, not just in terms of looking at the photos, but do you see something where I could try something different, or is there something else? Or you can actually, and this is something I did when the topic was first mentioned. I went to ChatGPT, and I'm actually getting there we go. Okay. I actually asked it, and I said, after reviewing, and I said, at ProfPod's Instagram, give me some examples of expanding my photo subjects and editing techniques. So it came back with a rather lengthy bullet point of, currently there's a mix of professional and personal moments, use of vibrant colors, and it gives me new subjects like interactive content, thematic series, lifestyle, personal, visual storytelling, about different ways you can experiment with editing styles. It even suggests using Lightroom, Visco, or Snapseed to create unique presets, play with color grading, visual storytelling. It actually goes into a lot of detail on, okay, the AI reviewed your photo feed, and here's some ideas I have. And you can use that to kind of springboard off.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. GTP. Anyway, whatever that thing is, they got to come up with a better name. It's a great resource, even if you don't like all this AI stuff. But it's a great resource for stuff just like what you talked about, Dave. It's an awesome way to come up with ideas, just to help get your own mind going. And so, I mean, Dave, you could literally over the next few months go down that list and try something new every time.
Yeah. And it'll give me something to try, and, something I can springboard off of.
Exactly.
And remember, it's not a failure. It's an experiment. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you gain the experience. And unlike the old days, your time, which is the most valuable thing you have, but that's the only thing you're investing. You're not really investing money.
And that's a good point.
You're not taking a photo, dropping it off to the little man in the hut in the parking lot, and then waiting a week and a half for it to come back to you, hoping the photo turns out right.
Yeah. What about you, Dwight? Have you got just one piece of advice for somebody to try to get them to step out of their box?
Yeah, for me, it's practice. Keep continuing to practice composition. When I first started taking photos, I would stand up and take a shot at eye height, and the photo looked nice, but move, get low, get high. When you're getting ready to take that sunset photo, look behind you, because a lot of times the clouds are more pretty behind you over the land. look, if you're downtown, you're taking a picture of a taxi, you might have a nice geometrical shape if you look up. So I would say look up, keep composition in mind, and when you're editing, crop for composition, crop to help you tell your story. A lot of times I see photos where maybe the subject matter's right in the middle of the photo. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to abide by the rule of thirds or another concept, but try to tell a story based on how you're composing your image via cropping and point of view from where you're shooting. It's like one time I was getting ready to take a shot, and then I got all the way down on the grass, and then I kind of tilted up a little bit, and it changed everything. It was beautiful. So just get creative, just keep being creative, and move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good. So, excuse me. All right, so that'll pretty much wind up our conversation here about broadening your horizons. I think it was a good discussion to have. I think there's things to be learned from it for the listeners and the watchers, anybody watching, and I think having this discussion is going to help me do things to expand my own world of photography, like storytelling and all this stuff. So I think it was well worth it. So before we move on to our recent photos, I had a little note here to mention. Question for the listeners. Does anybody have the Fjorden grip for their iPhone or any other grip? Like ShiftCam has one. There's scads of them on Amazon that are, probably lesser quality, I would imagine, because based on the prices. But, and if you do, let us know what you think of it. Do you like it? Would you recommend it? If you're in the podcast group, the podcast Facebook group, just put a post in there saying, yeah, I use this and this is why I like about it. And the reason I brought this up is because a lady on Glass just randomly asked me this question. So, it was in a comment on one of my pictures. And so I couldn't give her any advice because I don't have one of these grips. I don't use one. Don't know if I would, but I really didn't know what to tell her. But I said I'd put it out there and get back to her. But then, so she kind of expanded onto why she was asking me this, and she had an injury. She had broken her hand, and she couldn't hold the iPhone the way she wanted to comfortably to take pictures, and she thinks that the grip would help with that. So basically it's like a mobility thing. So I thought, okay, well, that's a great thing to throw out there, and a great question to ask. So I told her I would throw it out here, and I don't expect an answer like tonight or tomorrow or whatever, but anybody that's listening to the show, get a hold of us on our socials or whatever, and let us know what you think of these products. And do you use them? If you do, what do you like about them? And what would you recommend? So I just wanted to get that out there. You guys, neither one of you guys have anything like that, correct? Or do you know anybody that does?
I have a small rig, and I never used it. Yeah. Basically the two handles and a cage. Right. Mostly for videography. Well, I got it, and then I realized that cage needs to be upgraded, to my next phone. So I just kind of fizzled out on me.
Yep. Yeah.
I kind of wonder. I mean, the grip's one thing. It depends. Like I said, it depends on how their hand is right now. But I'm also wondering if something like a
gimbal.
A gimbal. Yeah. A gimbal would also help. Yeah. Because if you're having injury issues, you may not be able to hold your hand as steady as you wanted to. And that gimbal may be able to, cancel out if you have trouble keeping your hands, still. It can maybe cancel that out. Now, of course, there's, like you said, you can go all the way expensive professional, which I'm assuming most people don't want to do. Or you can go with moderate, or even go, if you want to risk it, you can try the cheap stuff.
Yeah. Hey, I picked up a gimbal for, I think it was $40. Now it's only a 2-axis gimbal. It's not a real fancy one. But you know what? My iPhone 15 Pro Max is sitting in it right now. It's holding my camera for me. That's about the most use it ever gets, really, these days. But anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there for the listeners and help this gal out. Get the information to us, and I'll make sure I get it back to her somehow, unless she's already decided on what she wants to do. But so now we'll move on to our recent photos. And so on the YouTube video, you'll be able to see this, large as life on the screen. But in the podcast player of your choice, you can look on your screen as long as it's not Spotify. I don't know why Spotify can't do this yet, but most other popular podcast players like the Apple Podcasts app, Overcast, Pocket Cast, things like that, they can show the images that we're going to be talking about in this enhanced version of the audio podcast. So, without further ado,
please don't look at it on your CarPlay as you're going through the red light.
Oh yeah. CarPlay, yes, it shows up on CarPlay, but don't look at it there. Okay, so we're going to start with Dwight with this one here, and I've seen this one online, and I think this is really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm using the 240 millimeter lens from Reflex on this one. I'm way back on the end of the pier in Newport Beach. There's a nice little swell. So the story I'm telling here is, if you know that this is an iPhone photo, I must be in the water, because there's no way I could have gotten that close.
Oh yeah, you're on a boat. You're like,
right.
You're on a boat. You're way out there riding the wave with this person.
Right, and that's a fun little wave. And we would like to find this guy and try to get him this photo, but he's just cruising on a nice little bowl right there. He looks happy. He's reaching back on the wave. And I had some real issues color grading this thing, and I just couldn't get it right. So I went over to Visco. And I got I used the KE1, which is the Kodak Ektar 100. And it's a high contrast preset that really makes colors pop. So it's really one of the favorite ones out there for high contrast. And that's about it. It was about 40 degrees out there. I was freezing, but this lens was a lot of fun that day. There was actually about 6 people in the water behind him that I took out, just to remove some distractions. And I don't know if that's a shark fin off the back of that wave right there, but maybe it's something that I forgot to take out.
But no, that it's so cool, and I love. And like I said, it's one of the things you can pick up using the 240. He's just putting his hand back there in the wave.
Yeah,
it looks like he's just enjoying the feel of the water as he's riding. And he's so calm looking. Literally, he's as calm as someone just standing on the sidewalk. And just looking around and enjoying the ride, probably freezing, but looking around and enjoying the ride.
Yeah, he's doing all right with the wetsuit on. He's got a big board, so it's steady. So yeah.
Yeah. And I love like you said, I can understand where you would have trouble with the coloration with how this is, but just the fact that the tealness of the water just around him, you get that pop of color that really makes a nice little touch here.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I was going to comment on the color too. Like it's, it kind of reminds me of up from where I live. You can go up this peninsula that's between Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, and it's the Bruce Peninsula. And excuse me, up near the top of the peninsula is a national park, and you can go. It's the Niagara Escarpment runs right along the water, so it's basically like a little cliff. It's not overly high, but it's way too high to jump off. That's for sure. It's probably a good couple 100 feet high. But sometimes the water, and I was up there a few years ago with a friend in the fall. We went to go autumn colors. We wanted to get the autumn colors this one day in October, and it was kind of windy and rainy and drizzly, and we ended up going to this national park and spending all our time shooting the water. We didn't even shoot any leaves at all, but the water had this color that's very similar to this image here, and I really love that color for water. I mean, some water, some waters would be a lot bluer or even almost black looking, but I don't know if it's it looks to me like it's an overcast day, and I think that just helps, neutralize the tone of that water somehow to that nice, beautiful blue color.
Yeah, it was overcast and cold, and that was the only filter I could color grade with to get it to where I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And that's further to our discussion on film sims too, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my story is that it looks like I'm in the water, and you got a guy there that's stoked and having a good day, and everybody's happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good stuff. So, Dave, this was interesting. I'm gonna guess it's like a hole in the ice or something, but I'm not sure.
Nope, that's exactly what it is. So it's been cold. It was cold enough this past week where the river mostly froze over, but there's still little bits because a lake would definitely freeze over as cold as we were, but the river, because of the moving water, it's not 100% frozen. So I took a picture of the rivers, kind of a far away picture. But then I noticed where this little blue spot was. So I cropped in on it and I did some editing to bring out the blue a little bit more and to bring out the detail where you can almost see the kind of the layers of the ice as it's going around. It almost looks like a crater.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of neat to be able to see the water underneath and the blue, and everything else is pretty much white where else you see, because there's snow on the ground, there's no trees anywhere, and everything's snow covered, including the houses. So it's very little color in anywhere, and it was an overcast day. So it was gray on gray on gray with this pop of color right there.
Yeah, so, Dave, I thought you had a I thought you were in a satellite and you discovered water on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that kind of stuff out here, but that's cool. And bringing out the blues like that's really, really neat. And, it kind of shows the different layers of light, I think, going through there. Interesting photo.
Yeah. And honestly, it's one of those things that taking time and just walking somewhere to just get a shot that you kind of have to look for, because, where I walked, that part of the sidewalk was clear, but the sidewalk on the bridge was snow covered, and it's a decent grade up and down on the bridge. So I didn't want to walk too far up and then have to walk down, and I didn't want to slide down the sidewalk of the bridge per se. So I went only so far, and just to see something a little bit different, because you wouldn't see that if you're driving across the bridge.
Right.
Yeah. I like the crop. It looks like a 65 by 24 crop. Whether it is or it's something close to it, but it really works for this image. It blocks out anything that doesn't really matter. Like you said, the houses, everything, it's all snow covered. Mm-hmm. And I think it would just take away from the actual subject matter here. And it almost looks like the ice is like 3 feet thick. And what you're looking at right in the middle of it is it's, the ice is layering down. It's almost like it's going down into a hole. Mm-hmm. But yet it's filled with water. That's kind of what it looks like to me. But the texture of the snow shows well too.
Yeah.
Especially on the right hand, on the lower side of the right hand corner there, it really shows that texture nice, and basically everywhere the texture is pretty nice in it. So that's a good shot.
No, thanks, man.
So this one here on the theme of water or ice, this is in the local harbor, and I had been out to the local waterfall getting some shots out there, and on my way home I saw these ships. Okay, so the one on the left is the local ferry that goes from the tip of the peninsula I'd mentioned up to an island further north, and it runs up and down there all summer, and it sits in town here for the winter. And the other ship is a lake freighter that is actually very, very long. You can't tell obviously from this angle, but what caught my eye was I was driving up towards the main street that goes through our town here. Excuse me. And the way the sun was hitting that, I thought it was really cool, especially with the dark gray sky way off into the distance there. I thought it really kind of accentuated the ship a little more. Mm-hmm. And this was from the bridge on the main street through town, looking north at the ship, and I used the 240 for this one as well.
I love the pop of color. Like I said, the fact that it's the gray sky, the white, and the bright red of the ship that's kind of almost directly in front of you, and the pattern on the other one, where I'm assuming that's based on some. I'm not sure where the pattern comes from.
It's called the Chichimon, which stands for a big canoe. It's I think is Ojibwe, the native Indian language, and so that design goes right down, pretty much down the whole, almost down. Well, I'm not sure how far back it goes, maybe halfway back along the side of that ferry, and it's all native related, and it's a really, really cool piece of artwork that they've put on there.
Yeah, and like I said, the white, the sky being a neutral color, the basically the white of the lake, and just having the colors pop up there. And I would say that is one advantage of when you have winter photos. You can you don't even have to make something black and white. If you have snow on the ground and it's a little overcast, your photos will be black and white.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah.
And the color really pops because there's so little of it. It just kind of pops out at you.
Yeah, I think that's what really jumps out at me is how all the colors are tied together, Greg. I mean, each ship has red and yellow in it. Even the side of the dock has some yellow and orange in it. Background, there's some dead trees, kind of ties it together there. It's an interesting shot. I mean, I really love the lake freighters and stuff like that. I'd probably want to get out of the car and take more pictures of that. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting photo. You have the dock down in the lower left, kind of a small leading line into the photo, and yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, thank you. So that's our first three. We got three more to come. But I'm just going to split this up just real quick here with a comment that's in the chat here by John Cameron. He says, Andy Hutchinson has a video today explaining PixelFed. It seems like an interesting photo posting site. So, yeah, somebody had sent me a note in Facebook Messenger, a listener somewhere. The name escapes me. I'm sorry. They said something about this PixelFed. So I checked it out, and I actually made an account. But honestly, I don't think it's someplace I'm going to be posting. It looks interesting. It's kind of server based, kind of like what's the Mastodon. But again, I want to try to trim down the places where I'm posting, but by all means, I'll put a link in the show notes to PixelFed, and if anybody's interested in checking it out,
Yeah, I read some of the comments, Greg, in the App Store, and it doesn't sound like it's quite ready for prime time yet. It's buggy, but at some point I'll check it out, but I probably won't create an account because I'm parsing down.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So moving on with our next image is back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, that looks a little blurry on here. You have to picture it being a little bit sharper in the background. But again, this is the 240 lens. This is down at Crystal Cove. If you watch one of the latest reflex videos in our buddy, oh gosh, what's his name?
Oh, David Addison.
David Addison, yeah, and he has a series of videos where he's talking about macro and this and that. We always try to shoot through something to make it more interesting. And, I think if I would have just taken the photo of this house from a distance, it would just look like a house in the distance on the beach, which is cool. But I was able to shoot through this Christmas tree that was still up on the beach. And I thought it provided a little bit of depth. And that's actually the house that was used in the film Beaches, starring Bette Midler a long time ago, and that's in Crystal Cove State Park. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight the depth of field here, with that lens, and I think the story behind this one is it's almost like somebody's just peeking out, behind the tree and looking at the house.
You tourist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the fact that if you zoom in on the house, you can still see the Christmas lights being strung up.
Yeah.
They're not gaudy lights. They're just kind of, I'm sure at night it would just glow amazing, but they're just enough. And the crazy thing, because I zoomed in on my phone on the plaque on the gate, and I can see the middle word is cottage.
Yep.
Which is just amazing that I know we don't want to play who can zoom who and read the letters, but it's still pretty amazing that you can read that far away, even blurry, and get those details.
I'm a couple 100 yards away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And every single cottage along that beach, the Crystal Cove cottages, has a name. So you're probably looking at the name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Very, it looks like a lot of nostalgia in this place. I don't know how old it would be, but it just reminds me of a cottage that a cousin of mine had out at it's a kind of a famous beach around here. It's called Sauble Beach, and it's out on the Lake Huron shoreline. The beach stretches about 7 miles long, and they have a cottage. Well, they did have. I don't know if they still have it or not, but it was a real rustic, a real comfy, cozy, rustic cottage that kind of looked like this, and that's what this reminds me of. It just takes me back to when I was a kid, and we'd go out and visit them while they're out there, and yeah, it's just really cool.
Yeah, these are early 1900s.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that old, eh?
A lot of actors and actresses, they come down and spend the summer, and people with a few shingles, no pun intended on the house there, but yeah, I just can't imagine. And every day at 5 o'clock, they'd come out and blow the trumpet, which meant it was happy hour time. I mean, it was a really neat community. You should look up Crystal Cove State Park sometime. It's a real neat history.
Yeah. And this is another good example of the compression of that lens too. Those two sticks or whatever sticking out of the ground, I bet you they're a lot further away from that cottage than what they look.
Yes, they're way closer to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. So, Dave, your next one.
Yeah, this is actually taken on a run, and it was around 4:45 local time. So you can see we were around a half hour-ish, maybe a little bit longer away from sunset. So it was golden hour, and I just love the look of. I did some editing, so the sun looked a little different, but the fact it was snow covered, and again the snow covered river right behind it, and just that the empty swing set that's right there.
Yeah, is that a path going through there? There's a line about 15% up from the bottom. I'm just trying to figure, or is that like a curb or something? I guess I'm just trying to figure that out.
Oh, no, that's actually the water edge.
Oh, okay. So it's water beyond that. Okay.
Yeah. But beyond that is the river that's frozen over and has snow on it.
Yeah. The first thing that grabbed me on this one is I looked over towards the sun, and it looks like the sky's on fire on the to the right of that tree. It almost looks like your photo from last week on the Teppan Grill. I was looking at that going, PTSD over here.
No.
But no, it's neat. It's the tree lines where they hit the snow are it's cool, pretty sharp, and the shadows coming off of the sun are cool. That's an interesting shot. Looks like a really neat place. In the spring or summer.
Oh yeah, and this is actually, I think, someone's home.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's more of their side yard. The house is a normal average house on the river. It's just that they have a good amount of side yard. And really, it's just a yard with some trees in it, and they put up the swing here. But obviously, at the time, it was 20 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. You don't want to... You could send the kids out there, bundle them up and say, go out there, don't fall in the water. But obviously, they didn't want the kids out there this cold.
And those are apartments or condos in the background.
Yeah, they're across the river.
Yeah,
okay. Those are condos across the river.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought for sure I was looking at a park here, like a public park, because this is kind of similar to what we have around here. Like, there's a little town a little bit north of here, maybe a 20-minute, 25-minute drive, has a big waterside park with swings and stuff like that around it. And, this could very easily pass for that type of environment. But boy, it would be so nice to live, facing this river like this, because all 4 seasons you're bound to get some nice scenery.
Oh yeah.
And I love the warmth that you've given this with the edit.
Yeah, I did boost, even though it was golden hour, I did boost the warmth of the image to give the snow a little bit of a yellow warmth to it.
Yeah, because sometimes when you take a shot in the winter, you tend to want to maybe make it look a little cooler or cold looking. But this is a nice change from that, by making it look nice and warm. So, well done.
Thanks.
So this is my last one. This was actually taken, I think, just before I went and took one of those ships. This was on the way back into town from the waterfall. And it just caught my eye the way it was late afternoon. The sun was on its way down, and it really caught my eye how the fence posts were casting the shadow down in the snow. And we've had so much snow recently that it's all nice and fresh, and the snowmobilers haven't had a chance to ruin the scene yet. There's no animal tracks through it. The only thing I did, other than things like for color and contrast, is there was some small little twigs coming out of the snow across the bottom of the frame that I thought just kind of ruined it, and I couldn't position myself anywhere else to get a better shot, because I shot this from my truck on the road, and there was the only way I could do it. It was a very kind of a narrow line of sight to the scene because there's trees on either side of it. So I used the 240 to isolate this area, and I shot it in Bayer raw, and because I wanted the fence to look as crisp and sharp as possible, and the focus point was on the fence in the middle, and I just tried to make it look I think I warmed it up just a wee bit, just a few degrees actually on the Kelvin scale. Again, like to get away from that cold feeling of the image, because it was, the sun was going down, it was approaching golden hour, and I just wanted to, make it a little more pleasing to the eye, especially folks around here had enough of this cold and snow.
And I agree that sometimes you have, especially for a winter scene, unless you're going for the feeling of cold, like you're making it blue on purpose, adding that warmth will help give highlights. because having that golden, the snow being a little bit of a warmer tone really emphasizes the difference between that and the shadows. And I love the shadows that are being cast on the snow a little further down, almost looking like a picket fence on the snow itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg, did you have that blue color cast that's typical in the cold weather from the iPhone originally?
It wasn't that bad, to be honest with
Okay.
you. I'd have to go back and look at the original RAW file, but I think this is kind of close to what it looked like.
No, that
but
looks
again,
good.
I think I warmed it up just a wee bit.
I think what makes this photo is obviously the use of light and the reflection of the structure there. Almost looks like a fish bone or herringbone or something going on there. Then it shoots up into the top and they intersect each other. Very interesting. I think it's well balanced, and I like it. Is that a little bit of snow on top of the post as well?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, nice job.
Yeah.
Good eye.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I just happened to catch it as I was driving by. So one of those lucky shots.
You never
I guess
know.
would
You
say.
just have to keep taking pictures, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, well, that's our recent photos, and I guess that's our show too. So again, in the future, we're going to talk a little bit about where we think the ultimate place to post pictures is and things like that. And I think I'd like to do a show on panoramas, whether they're created with multiple images or just cropped. But I think that could be an interesting discussion too. And so that'll give us time to get out there and shoot some stuff, and we could talk about some panoramic apps and things like that. But coming up on the next show, though, will be an interview with Alex Fox. He is the developer of Mood Camera. It's a very interesting camera app. It's a film simulation thing, and now that is going to be coming out. We're going to do it live on February 1st, which is next Saturday. And unfortunately, Dave's going to be out punishing himself and freezing. So, and is it a 5K run?
Yeah,
Dave?
it's only a 5K, so it's not too bad. The forecast has changed 5 or 6 times in the last couple days. So it went from freezing rain in the morning to 1 to 2 inches of snow to now no precip within 3-day period.
Wow. It's going to be one of those things where you wait and see that till
Pretty
the time
much,
comes, I
yeah.
guess.
Pretty much, yeah. But unfortunately, the time is scheduled that he could actually make it. I'll be just finishing up the run in my car headed home. So I really couldn't add much to the discussion.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you could.
Well, I mean, while I'm driving, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I would actually be driving home while the interview is taking place. So me driving,
okay,
I don't think I could add much.
I gotcha. But yeah, Dwight, you're going to be getting up nice and early that morning to join in.
Yeah,
and,
I'm looking forward to that.
So it's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m.
This Saturday.
And for Dwight, it's going to be 7 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you getting up that early.
Oh, I'm up early. Yeah, that's no big deal. That's sleeping in for me.
Yeah. But I'm not a morning guy, so 10 o'clock is early enough for me. But anyway, but Alex is in the UK. That's why we have to do it. The time of day that we do it, we couldn't have him on at a regular recording time because that would be 2 in the morning for him type of thing, start time. So, him and I kind of emailed back and forth and agreed that 10 o'clock on Saturday morning was the time to do it. And this is going to be like an extra show. So, we'll Dwight, you and I will have one picture for our recent photos, and then I'm going to get him to send me 2 for him to talk about, and then we're going to carry on with our regularly scheduled stuff in 2 weeks from now. So it's kind of like a a special kind of thing because of the timing and all that stuff. So look for that on Saturday morning, February 1st, live on YouTube, and with the audio version coming out probably a day or two after that. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks, guys. Good discussion, and I think I know I've learned a few things about broadening my horizons in my photography. So well worth bringing this one up. So thanks to everybody for watching in the chat or on YouTube, and I guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
All right, have a good one, everyone. Be safe.
Have a great